Welcome to Fighting Stats, the ultimate channel for UFC fans who love statistics and betting breakdowns. I'm your host, Art C, and today I'll be getting you ready for the upcoming UFC fight. Here at FightingStats.com, we have exclusive UFC stats not available anywhere else. We can tell you how often a fighter throws that left hook or that right jab in southpaw, how often they move backwards, or how often they throw kicks. We have all of that information. But that is not all. In this series, I'll be watching tape and I'll give you my real-time analysis on how the fight's going to go. I'm going to watch for fighter strengths, weaknesses, tendencies, and overall strategies to give you my prediction on how I think the fight is going to go and ultimately who's going to win. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Welcome to Fighting Stats. Welcome back to Fighting Stats. I'm your host, Art C, and today we are breaking down the UFC 303 co-main event between Jamahal Sweet Dreams Hill and Carlos Ulberg. Now, this fight is a rebooking here. It was supposed to be Jamahal Hill versus Khalil Roundtree. Khalil Roundtree actually getting injured. Carlos Ulberg stepping in as somewhat of the late notice replacement here. So we're going to be breaking down this fight here. Again, it's happening at UFC 303 International Fight Week on the Conor McGregor card against Michael Chandler. We just broke that down, that fight down there. Go check out that breakdown there. So if you don't know, here at Fighting Stats, I go through all of the detailed fighting stats here, go into all the striking reports, our grappling reports, tells us sort of how the fight might go based on the numbers. I'll give you my prediction on how I think the fight's going to go. I watched all of the Jamahal Hill fight tape. I watched all the Carlos Ulberg fight tape there. So I have a pretty good idea of how the fight's going to play out. I'll give you my prediction on how that's going to go. And then I'll get into the numbers, our best bets, where I think the line should be, where some of the prop bets should be, and use Kelly criterion to determine how much of our bankroll should we bet on each of the possible outcomes. So without further ado, let's get this started here. So I've put Jamahal Hill on the blue side, Carlos Ulberg here on the red side here. Jamahal Hill going to be 6-1 in the UFC, 66% of his wins coming from KO, 33% coming from decision. He does have one loss, and that's coming from KO as well. Actually, two losses because that last one against Poatan Pereira. Carlos Ulberg going to be 5-1 in the UFC. 60% of his wins coming from KO, 20% coming from submission. Who does have one loss against Kennedy Nzechukwu. That one coming from KO there. In terms of the physicals here, it looks like they're going to be about the same height. Jamahal Hill actually going to have 2 inches of reach advantage. Jamahal Hill going to be the southpaw. Carlos Ulberg going to be orthodox. But we'll get into that shortly here. So. I did break down the Hill extensively. Jamahal Hill fought Alex Pereira at UFC 300. I was there live. That was an event to remember. Never forget that one there. So I did break that fight down in detail. Jamahal Hill versus Alex Pereira. Go check that out on our YouTube channel, FightingStats.com there. But this fight going to be very similar, and I'll tell you why in a bit. Just follow me here with the numbers here. So starting out with Jamahal Hill, offensive striking numbers. 81% of his strikes landed, going to be at a distance. 9% in the clinch and only 10% on the ground. In terms of his target breakdown, 80% of his strikes landed going to be towards the head, 16 towards the body, and only 4% towards the legs. Not a big leg kicker there. In terms of striking accuracy, 45% head strike accuracy, 82 body strike accuracy, and 91% leg strike accuracy. In terms of strikes thrown by round, you can see these big M here. Averages 36 strikes thrown in round 1, spikes up to 85 in round 2, drops down to 48 in round 3, spikes up to 90 in round 4, and then drops to 24 in round 5 there. And same thing with strikes landed, same sort of M pattern there. He does have a couple of knockdowns, all of them 4 knockdowns coming all in the first round there. So something to keep an eye on there. So again, we talked about not a big leg kick guy. Landed a couple against Glover Teixeira. Nothing to write home about there. Did get some ground strikes landed against Glover Teixeira in round number 3. Also got some ground strikes against Thiago Santos in round number 4 there. But we broke that fight in terms of his strength of schedule down in that last fight. We'll briefly go over it here. Moving over to the defensive striking for Jamahal Hill. Jamahal Hill, 81% of the strikes absorbed going to be from a distance, 7% in the clinch, and 12% on the ground. In terms of strikes absorbed, 72% of the strikes absorbed going to be towards the head, 16 towards the body, and 12% towards the leg. Defensive head strike accuracy, 39%, which is okay, not great. 81 towards the body, and 91% leg kick defense. So this is going to be important. This was important in the Alex Pereira fight. It's going to be important in the Carlos Ulberg fight. 91% of the leg kicks thrown against Jamahal Hill are landing. Significant strikes landed by round. He absorbs 13 strikes in round 1, 15 in round 2, drops down to 12 in round 3, and then rounds 4 spikes up to 19, and then drops to 7 in round 5. Obviously, the sample sizes for round 5 going to be pretty small there, so keep that in mind. Moving over to the Carlos Ulberg striking, his detailed striking. So 85% of his strikes going to be at a distance, 7% in the clinch, and 8% on the ground. In terms of his targets, 73% towards the head, 15 towards the body, and 12% towards the leg. A decent leg kicker there. Striking accuracy pretty damn good at 50% strike accuracy towards the head, meaning that every other strike he throws towards the head is landing. 85% strike accuracy towards the body, and 91% leg strike accuracy to the legs. And again, he is a decent leg kicker, scoring 91% of those strikes there. In terms of average strikes thrown by round, it does seem to go up there. Starts at 42 in round number 1, spikes up to 68 in round number 2, 51 in round number 3 there. Also has 4 career knockdowns, all of them coming in round number 1. Has not seen a round 4 or 5 yet in his career. This would be, I believe it's a 3-round fight, actually. I need to double check there. Carlos Ulberg, defensive striking here. 92% of his strikes absorbed going to be at a distance, so he's going to stay at a distance most of the time. 4% in the clinch and 4% on the ground, whereas his target breakdown against, 73% of the strikes against are towards the head, 11% towards the body, and 16% towards the legs. He did eat quite a few leg kicks there against Da Woon Jung. Striking defense, 42 head strike defense, not great. 53% towards the body and 74% towards the legs. And then strikes absorbed, again, 12 absorbed in round number 1, spikes up to 25 in round number 2, and 10 strikes absorbed in round number 3. Has been knocked down once, and that was coming in round number 2. That round number 2 was against Kennedy Nzechukwu in his UFC debut. We talked about the leg strikes landed. Da Hoon Jung landing 29 leg kicks. That's where a big chunk of that target breakdown comes down. Otherwise, he's going to stay mostly at a distance there. Both guys mainly going to be strikers. I don't think that the fight hits the mat, but we will move over to the detailed grappling report just to touch over on it, just to show you why I don't think the fight's going to go down to the ground. Starting with the Jamahal Hill side, look at this. He has not attempted a takedown in the UFC. 0 attempts, 0 successful. So it doesn't really, I don't really think he's going to be attempting a takedown. If he was ever supposed to attempt a takedown, it would have been his last fight against Alex Pereira. Came out trying to strike in that fight as well before getting knocked out. So no attempts there for Jamahal Hill. In terms of his defense, he has seen 48 takedown attempts against, only allowing 14 of them to be successful. So decent takedown defense for Jamahal Hill overall. And same thing with Carlos Ulberg, offensive grappling. He has attempted 4 takedowns in his UFC career. 3 of them have been successful. 2 against Fabio Charant and 1 against Da Woon Jung in the 3rd round there. I will be honest, in the Fabio Charant one, the 2 takedowns they got, they were a couple of seconds, 4 or 5 seconds in terms of control time. Fabio Charant got back up. And same thing with Da Woon Jung. Not a big control guy on the ground there. So again, I don't really think that either guy is going to be shooting a takedown. If it does happen, it might be off of a caught kick or something like that. I don't think anybody's really pursuing the takedown. And then same thing with defensive grappling for Ulberg. He has seen 4 takedown attempts against, 2 against Da Woon Jung, once against Ihor Pretoria, and only 1 of them has been successful against Da Woon Jung in the round number 3, but only gave up 15 seconds of control there. So Let's move over to the tail of the tape and sort of how they match up in terms of striking defense. I did go over those numbers, but I just wanted to compare them: head strike versus offense versus defense there. And again, the biggest ones for me are the head strike accuracy here. So Jamahal Hill, 45% head strike accuracy versus Carlos Ulberg head strike defense at 42%. So it looks like he's going to be landing a decent number of head strikes there. Body strike accuracy 82%, whereas the body strike defense 53% for Carlos Ulberg. And then again, Jamahal Hill doesn't go to the leg kicks too much, but 91% leg kick accuracy versus 74% defense there. And then on the offensive side, Ulberg has head strike accuracy of 50% versus Jamahal Hill's 39% head strike defense. And then body accuracy 85% versus Jamahal Hill's 81% body strike defense. And then leg kick accuracy, again, look at the leg kick accuracy at 91%. Carlos Ulberg, 91% leg kick defense for Jamahal Hill. That one is going to be a big factor in this fight, and I'll break it down now in terms of why. So again, I watched all of the Carlos Ulberg fight tape recently. We watched all of Jamahal Hill to prepare for the Alex Pereira fight. And I'll be honest, Carlos Ulberg looks very similar to Alex Pereira. Both guys kickboxers, both guys fight orthodox, both guys have a very decent left hook, and both guys go to the leg kicks early and often. So actually, I think the matchup's going to be very similar to the Alex Pereira versus Jamahal Hill. Go watch that breakdown. I'll say a lot of the same things. But starting with the Jamahal Hill side, he's going to be a southpaw fighter. He's going to open up. He does like to pressure his fighters a lot. He does throw the left high kick, the rear left high kick a lot, going to head kick. He threw that a couple of times against Glover Teixeira, landed that quite often. He does have a nice left straight as well, and then decently quick hands there. So the only knock I did have against Jamahal Hill was more of his strength of schedule, and I talked about that in detail in that last breakdown, but I just want to touch on it here, going through his strength of schedule here. So he opens up his UFC career against Darko Stosic, not in the UFC anymore. Fights Cleeson Ibru, not in the UFC anymore. Oven St. Preux, I think Oven St. Preux actually winning that first round and then gassing out, getting finished in there. Paul Craig going to be one-dimensional grappler. Actually, Paul Craig finishes him by triangle armbar, TKO. Jimmy Crute, pretty chinny there, finishes Jimmy Crute there. Johnny Walker, another very chinny guy, finishes Johnny Walker in the first round there. Then fights Thiago Santos in a 4-round fight there. Thiago Santos coming off of 2 knee injuries, actually got cut from the UFC, went over to, I think, Bellator, and then actually started losing at Bellator as well. I think he's only won 1 of his last 7. So I know Thiago Santos is a big name there, but again, not the best of competition. Glover Teixeira, I think, was like 50-something at the time they fought. I know he was a former champion, but very old and now has retired. And then all of those matching up against Alex Pereira, sort of the perfect storm there. So a lot of people on the Jamahal Hill side, not saying it was a bad bet, but Alex Pereira being the more technical, credentialed kickboxer there. So the main thing I see in terms of weaknesses for Jamahal Hill is one, those leg kick defense. He is not able to check those leg kicks from southpaw or orthodox. Again, 91% of those leg kicks coming through. And Carlos Ulberg, just like Jamahal Hill, or just like Alex Pereira, will throw both leg kicks inside, outside, rear kicks from orthodox versus southpaw. So they will land. Carlos Ulberg going to the legs early and often. If you want to see a fight, go watch the Nikolai Negumereanu fight. He damaged that leg within the 4 or 5 leg strikes. Nikolai limping on that leg quite early in that round, so I can see him going to that. The only difference was that Nikolai is going to be orthodox, whereas Jamahal Hill is going to be southpaw. But if you go watch the Fabio Charant fight, the couple of fights before that, Carlos Ulberg has no problem throwing the inside low kick against the southpaw, so watch for that. The other thing I really noticed with Jamahal Hill, and again I talked about it a lot, is that he will fight southpaw, so when he throws that left straight, he has a very bad tendency of dropping this right hand down to throw that left straight, and it comes down towards his hip. That's basically how he got knocked out by Alex Pereira. He kept that left arm down. It really opened to the left hook counter from Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira jumping in with that left hook, landing clean, and then dropping Jamahal Hill there. So weaknesses to the leg kicks, weaknesses to the left hook for Jamahal Hill, and that's going to be a big play in this fight here. Moving over to the Carlos Ulberg side, he basically wants to do the same thing every single fight. So we watch the tape. If Carlos Ulberg has his way, he's going to be circling around on the outside. He's going to open up orthodox. He's going to pepper a lot of kicks, outside low kicks, inside low kicks. Against this again against the southpaw, he has no problem kicking the inside of the leg. He'll go lead outside kick just to sort of touch your legs, sort of things like that. He'll stay at range. He'll mostly pop the jab. He likes popping the jab as the offensive, and as the opponent comes forward, he always loves the check left hook. So he'll always lean back, throw that left hook. He has a very fast check left hook. He'll actually double it up and throw double left hooks as well, knocking his opponent out. I think he has 3, 4, 5 first round TKOs, all of them coming from check left hooks there. So one thing to keep a note of there. So like I said, Carlos Ulberg is going to want to keep the distance on the outside, stay on the outside, play this outside kicking game. He did it against Fabio Charant. So the main difference, if you watch the Kennedy and Jekaku fight and you watch the Fabio Charant fight, both opponents taking different approaches. Kennedy was the first one to really pressure Carlos Ulberg, coming forward with a high guard, having Carlos Ulberg sort of tee off on his high guard there. Carlos Ulberg, look at these strikes, threw 120 strikes in round number 1, and then 107 strikes in round number 2. And that's because Kennedy was in his face, took away that kicking room that Carlos wants to keep, was in his face, and then he threw all these strikes against the guard. Kennedy eventually finding the finish as Carlos started to slow down in that fight. And then you take it over to the Fabio Charant fight. Fabio Charant had zero urgency in that fight, stood at the center of the cage, let Carlos Ulberg sort of pick him apart at range. I think Fabio Charant only landing 12 strikes in that whole fight here. Look at that, 4 in round 1, 7 in round 2, and 2 in round 3. Just letting Carlos Ulberg dictate the pace where the fight really goes, and then ended up losing a decision 30-27. So that, my friends, is going to be the key to this fight in terms of how Jamahal Hill approaches this fight. So both guys are going to open up, again, Jamahal Hill's going to open up southpaw. Carlos Ulberg is going to open up orthodox. Carlos Ulberg is going to take the outside of the cage. It's going to be the bigger cage, so he's going to have more room to move. He does move laterally, left and right. As he moves to the right, he's trying to get the angle on the leg kick, so watch for the low right kick there. As he moves to the left, again, he's going to be looking for that left hook counter as he circles off to the left. So Jamahal Hill really has to dictate on terms of pushing the pace, closing that distance early and making it a brawl, or standing out outside at range, and he probably loses a striking kickboxing match at range. Carlos Ulberg being the better leg kicker of the two, better kicker in general. Carlos Ulberg is going to throw body kicks to the body, obviously, and head kicks up top as well, whereas Jamahal Hill really only going to throw the left high kick as well. So yeah, I think in this fight, Jamahal Hill's going to really have to pick it up, really have to be in your face, push the pace, and be in Carlos Ulberg's face. The only problem is that as soon as you get into that striking distance for Carlos Ulberg, he's going to be throwing that left hook over and over and over. And again, with Jamahal Hill dropping that right arm when he's throwing that left straight, I can see a lot of openings for Carlos Ulberg to land that left hook, and finishing them there. And again, for me, I thought that Jamahal Hill took the Alex Pereira fight a little bit too early. He was coming off of an Achilles injury, I believe. His timeline for recovery was 10 to 12 months, and he came back at 8 months, I believe. He was supposed to fight in April and ended up fighting a lot earlier, something like that. So now he's coming off of a pretty bad TKO loss, one of the worst TKO losses where he actually got knocked out pretty cold, and now he's coming back and fighting Carlos Ulberg on pretty short turnaround time. So that definitely going to play a factor in this here. You've seen, things like Volkanovski coming back from a TKO too early and then it being more susceptible. I would not be surprised if Carlos Ulberg landed that left hook early and put out Jamahal Hill quite early there. So I think for Jamahal Hill, he's going to have to land a left straight. He's going to have to make the fight dirty. I don't think he's going to be looking for takedowns, so he doesn't really have that in his back pocket. It's going to be a stand-up war. And again, if he tries to fight at range, I think Ulberg is going to be the better fighter at range, better jabs, better leg kicks, better things like that. So again, Jamahal Hill really going to have to push the pace. If he does not, and I've seen it before where fighters get knocked out. So think about Francis Ngannou. He gets knocked out to Stipe Miocic, loses the belt. He comes back 2nd fights Derek Lewis, and now he's completely shell shocked. He does not engage at all. He does not push the pace at all. He stands there. I could see a case for Jamahal Hill doing that, where he's not going to push the pace. Last time he got in there, he's looking for the left hand, so he's going to stay outside at range. I think it might be sort of a staring match to begin with. Carlos Ulberg he's content with that. He will pop the leg kicks over and over and over. He'll go high kick. He'll blast the high kick into your forearms, damage the forearms a little bit, and then in rounds 2 and 3 you might be compromised and trying to close the distance there. So I think it's going to be hard, honestly, for Jamahal Hill. I think it's a bad matchup for him. I said it in the Alex Pereira fight. I'm going to say it again in the Carlos Ulberg fight. Carlos Ulberg has a lot of the same weapons that Alex Pereira does as well. And then now, honestly, I thought that Jamahal Hill might have a path to victory through takedowns, through grappling against Alex Pereira. I'm not too sure about Carlos Ulberg. Not very many people have attempted a takedown. He does seem to be quite strong in the clinch, decent takedown defense, whereas Alex Pereira seems to be a little bit sloppy off of his back there. So even the weakness that we saw in Alex Pereira might not be there for Carlos Ulberg. I definitely see more paths to victory for Ulberg. The one thing I will say about Ulberg is we haven't seen him go rounds 4 and 5. We have seen Jamahal Hill take Glover Teixeira into the deep waters there and going 5 rounds. So it really depends on the pace again that Jamahal Hill pushes. If he pushes the pace early and gets in your face, makes it a dogfight, I can see Carlos Ulberg gassing into the later rounds. But if you're going to stay on the outside, let Ulberg sort of pit patter you, hit you with kicks, hit you with jabs, then Ulberg can do that 5 rounds no problem. So again, it really depends on that way of how Jamahal Hill approaches it, and I think he might be a little bit tentative based on past performances. So all that to say, that's how I think the fight's going to play out. Let's go over to our fighting stats betting bankroll here, our handy dandy bet tracker here. So I'm going to break down the fights. I'm going to give you my percentages on how I think the fight's going to play out, and that will give us where the best bet is. I have not looked at the odds, so I'm curious to see where the odds are after this. So starting with Jamahal Hill to win by TKO. I think it's possible. Carlos Ulberg did get KO'd by Kennedy Nzechukwu. Jamahal Hill's a lot better than Kennedy is, but again, that was more about the pace and the pressure from Kennedy and Carlos Ulberg slowing down. But Kennedy doesn't have a ton of power in his hands. He landed a right hook, dropped Carlos Ulberg there, and I think he was semi-dropped in the second fight after that as well. So I do question Ulberg's chin when he gets caught clean. I think Jamahal Hill can land a left straight there as well. So all that to say, I'm going to leave it about 25%. We leave it 25% for Jamahal Hill TKO. Jamahal Hill to win by submission. I don't think anybody's going to win by submission just because I don't think they hits the ground. Do they have submissions in them? Sure. Jamahal Hill submits Glover Teixeira in some unpredictable way, but leaving it at 0% for the sake of argument. Don't want to give away percentages there. Jamahal Hill to win by decision. It's possible. I think he's going to be completely compromised in terms of the legs, but we're going to leave it at 15% to win by decision. I think it might be a little bit lower than that, but we'll leave it for now. Carlos Ulberg to win by KO. I think this is possible again. I think it's the left hook that goes over and over, but it could also be accumulation of leg kicks. I can see by the second or third round, Jamahal Hill not able to put any pressure on that lead leg, having to switch stances. So I can see it finishes late. If I gave Jamahal Hill 25%, honestly, I'm kind of tempted to put 30% for now, maybe even 35% for TKO. Carlos Ulberg to win by submission. He won by submission against not his last fight, but against Daun Jung. That was 11 seconds left. He got the back. He put in the rear naked choke. But if you go back and watch that ground sequence, he wasn't looking for a choke. He wasn't looking to control position. It's sort of opportunistic. So I think it's same thing where Jamahal Hill I'm going to leave it at 0%. I guess I could put 5% for both. All right, 5% for both just to put something in there because it is possible. I'm not going to say it's not possible. Carlos Ulberg to win by decision, I think, is also possible. I think it's from the leg kicks. I think it's from the outside. If Jamahal Hill is tentative and does not push a pace, I think Carlos Ulberg can win a couple of rounds there. I'm going to leave it at 15% there as well. Now I'm off by 5%. Honestly, I'm going to add it to TKO. I'm going to add it to Carlos Ulberg. I'm going to make a stand there. I think Jamahal Hill coming back from the TKO loss to Alex Pereira. A lot of the same weaknesses that I saw against Alex Pereira. I'm going to put at 35% for Carlos Ulberg. So I may be in the majority, but let me know in the comments below if these odds are completely off. I'll just recap them here. So Jamahal Hill going to win by TKO 25% plus 300 or better. Jamahal Hill to win by submission 5% at plus 1900 or better. Jamahal Hill to win by decision 15% plus 567 or better. Total money line of plus 122 or 45% there. On the Carlos Ulberg side, 35% to win by TKO plus 186 or better, 5% to win by submission 19 plus 1900 or better, and win by decision plus 15% or plus 567 or better. Total money line of 55% minus 122 or better there. Fight to go to decision, I have at 30% plus 233. Not to go to decision at 70% or minus 233 there. So I'm taking a stand. I think I'm going to pick Carlos Ulberg to win. I think it's going to be by TKO. I think it's going to be left hook again, but it could be by leg kicks. I think Jamahal Hill really has to make the fight dirty. And then from there, it's 50-50 toss-up if it gets into a all-out brawl. Like I think Menefield was onto something. He came out aggressive early. He tried to really push the pace, but he did get starched right away. But I think, well, honestly, that's probably the best way to fight a Carlos Ulberg is to get into his face, make the fight really dirty, because I don't think Jamahal Hill is going to outpoint Carlos Ulberg in a kickboxing match. So that's where I think the numbers are going to lie. I have not seen the odds. I think I have a suspicion of where they are, but let's go over to fightodds.io. Pretty close, honestly. I thought they would have been a lot wider here. Jamahal Hill minus 120, Carlos Ulberg plus 100. So let's put that into the tracker here. Minus 120 for Jamahal Hill. I think I said plus 100 for Carlos Ulberg, right? So yeah, I said 55%, 45. Odds are pretty much similar. I think it's shaded to the Jamahal Hill side. So I said Jamahal Hill, I'll take him at plus 122 or better. He's minus 120. So 8 Kelly criterion saying do not bet. Whereas the Carlos Ulberg side, I think I said he should be around minus 122. We're getting odds of plus 100. Kelly criterion saying bet 1.3 units. I will probably do that now, and then I'll keep an eye out on these props when they do come out based on where the numbers lie. But yeah, overall, I thought the line would have been wider. I think the public would have been on Jamahal Hill side with Carlos Ulberg taking it on short notice, but not surprised by the line. That's where I sort of capped the line there. So I was hoping I would have gotten a bigger dog number on Ulberg there, but I'll take plus 100. It looks like the line's coming down a little bit as well. So that is it for the breakdown. Let me know in the comments below how we did. If you do want access to these exclusive fighting stats that we have, head over to fightingstats.com/fightstats. Here's our website here. We do have all of the information here. We have these handy dandy drop downs where you can type in the name of the specific fighter that you want, find out all the stats and more that you want there. So all of that available for free right now on our website, fightingstats.com. If I do end up placing a bet, I will post it over to patreon.com/fightingstats. That's where I post all the breakdowns, our bets, our shoot for the moon parlays, things like that. And join our community. You won't regret it there. As always, my name is Art C. I hope you enjoyed these breakdowns. They're very detailed. Let me know in the comments below what you think, and we'll go from there. Best of luck at UFC 303, and hopefully Carlos Ulberg comes through on the moneyline side. So again, my name is Art C. This is Fighting Stats. Thanks for watching.
All right, guys. Well, that is it for today. Thank you very much for watching. If you like this type of content, make sure you smash the like button, hit the subscribe. You'll get notified anytime we put out new content. Listen to this. We just hit a massive parlay for $29,000 at UFC 297. That is one UFC after 296 where we hit a parlay for $82,000. That's back-to-back parlays. We've made $110,000. And how do we do it? We use our exclusive fighting stats, not available anywhere else. Our exclusive fighting stats gives us information, gives us a big edge over the sportsbooks, and tell us what's going to happen within the fights. We post all that information, our breakdowns, our best bets over at patreon.com/fightingstats. Don't miss out. Make sure you subscribe today. Again, my name is Art C. This is Fighting Stats. Thanks for watching.